Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063, The Game and The Game Nashville app. We are live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios, and we're streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Willy Donick will join us here shortly. He is in Detroit holding it down. The Nashville Predators taking on the Red Wings tonight. Puck drop at 6 o'clock. All of your pregame coverage starting right here on 1025 and 1063. The game starting at 5 p.m. It is good to be back. I've been bedridden with the flu the past couple of days, but we're back in action, and I'm happy to be back with you, D-Mase. How we doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Glad to hear that you're doing a tad bit better. We're making good enough to.
We're able to be vertical today.
Exactly. Hey, that's a chore in itself, huh?
Truly, turning over in bed has been a chore the past couple of days. So, being able to get up and do the show is a treat. It's good to be back.
That's good. Did you have fun? But beside the the virus that everyone seems to get when they travel during the holidays, did you have a good time with your family?
I did. It's been really nice. It stinks to have the flu, but I was under a roof with people that I love, celebrating Christmas, with presents under the tree. It's a lot more than some people can say. So Absolutely. It was a really good holiday. It was good to be with my family. But D-Base, whenever I'm out and there's big news that drops, like whenever D-Hop got cut by the Cardinals, I had that day off and I'm just itching. I was itching. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It seems like every single day I'm out or I'm sick, something happens. And that's how I felt whenever I heard that Russell Wilson was getting benched. I was like, you got to be kidding me. The timing, because the thoughts, the opinion, the takes, and the need to just talk about it, D-Mase. First, before, we get into everything that I want to get into, what was your initial reaction when you heard that Russell Wilson was getting benched? And I'm sure you've been talking about it ad nauseum.
Yeah, I was surprised from this standpoint because, the way I think Sean Payton did it, how it all went down, I was surprised by that, because typically you don't see something like this, especially not with a starting quarterback during the season. And it's a quarterback that's been doing well. I mean, listen, it hadn't been all his fault. Has he been great since his time in Denver? No. But this season he was playing much better. And instead of benching your starting quarterback while you're still have an opportunity to make – that's the crazy part about it. You still have an opportunity to make the playoffs, and you choose to switch from your starter to Stidham. Now, Stidham may go out and win you the next two games and some things happen, and you may sneak into the playoffs. But what if you don't? What if you lose the remainder of the two games and play yourself out of the playoffs? Now, you got to look at every man in that locker room and explain to them why you chose to do what you did. Because it's all about team, but you chose your own agenda over the team. That's why when guys talk about, loyalty and all this other stuff, I'm like, man, listen, y'all, the organizations that y'all play for or we have played for, they are loyal to an extent. That's just what they are, as loyal as far as they can throw you. That's their loyalty. They may like you as a person. They may, put you in your ring of honor. They may welcome you back. But when it comes down to the dollars and cents, the loyalty stops right there. When it stops making sense to them from a dollar standpoint, then we're not loyal to you. But we expect you to be loyal to us and go out there and play through any circumstance. That's why this one isn't cutting well with me. I'm not a huge Russ fan. I'm not. Yeah. But you don't do a guy in that manner. That was never Sean Payton's guy. And he made it be known when he first got there. But to treat him that way, to argue with him on the sideline so everybody can see, how many head coaches have you seen argue with their starting quarterback on the sideline like that? You don't see that because you operate with quarterbacks differently than everybody else. But you chose to display your displeasure with your quarterback in front of and then you lied about it. You lied about what y'all were talking about. Oh, I wasn't yelling at him. Come on, Sean. And then you get up in your press conference and you lie about why you're benching him. You can't even
Right.
say that with a straight face. So how's anybody supposed to ever believe you with anything? So
And
that's
he
why
said, oh, go
I'm
ahead.
just, I'm done. I'm done with Sean Payton. Is he one of the best coaches in the National Football League throughout history? Yes, he has been. But what he did this go around, he could have handled it a lot different.
When Sean Payton said it was strictly a football decision, I couldn't help but laugh because it's so obviously not a football decision. Because is Russell Wilson a great quarterback? No, he's not.
Mm-hmm.
He's been playing better than he was last year, but also he was pretty atrocious last year. But 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, over 3,000 yards so far. The Broncos, it was not necessarily a long shot, but it was kind of it was a hope and a wish to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Chiefs had continued to play the way that they played on Christmas Day,
You
well, then
never know.
anything is possible. You never know. I mean, yeah, there was a small statistical chance of the Broncos making the playoffs, but there are small statistical chances for a lot of things that have happened in the NFL in the past. So it obviously was not a football decision because I don't think that Russell Wilson was playing so egregiously bad that it warranted putting in Jarrett Stidham, who hasn't done a damn thing in the NFL. So we all know it was about money. It was so clearly about money, about how they didn't want to have to be on the hook for the guaranteed injury clause. Now, let's say Russell Wilson, tears his ACL
Mm-hmm.
next game, then it would be on the hook for about $40 million. Didn't Denver didn't want to do that. And like you said, from the very beginning, Russell Wilson was not Sean Payton's guy. Sean Payton wanted his own guy. And I get it. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it from Sean Payton's perspective that he is an offensive guru and he wants his quarterback in that room to run his offense a certain way. But it just seems like everything that Denver gave up to get Russell Wilson, and in Sean Payton's first year, you're going to cut him free. And cut him free could mean several different things. Whether they
Mm-hmm.
do indeed intend to cut him, if they decide to trade him, whatever they decide to do in the future with Russell Wilson, it's just very obvious that one, they didn't want to be on the hook for the money, which I
Mm-hmm.
get, and two, Sean Payton wants a new quarterback. So now the question is, where does Russell Wilson go from here?
Mm.
And how does that affect the Titans? Because I do think that the quarterback carousel can affect a lot of teams involved, even if they're not looking for starting quarterbacks. I mean, the Titans are in the mix for a backup, a
Mm-hmm.
veteran backup next season. So where does that leave Russell Wilson? And where do the Titans come into play with this? So Jason McIntyre, he's on with Colin Cowherd. He has a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And on that podcast is called the Straight Fire Podcast. He highlighted 3 AFC teams and 3 NFC teams that could be potential landing spots for Russell Wilson. And this was one AFC team that he thought Russell Wilson would be a good fit for. This was Jason McIntyre of Fox Sports.
Finally, in the AFC, this one will not be popular, but the Tennessee Titans. Now, everyone will say, but Jay, hey, they've drafted quarterbacks the last 2 years. Oh, Will Levis started a lot. And Vrabel will now have missed the playoffs back-to-back years after 3 straight years of making the playoffs. This franchise is teetering on a massive reboot. We heard Derrick Henry, within, the last 10 days say, hey, I'm probably playing my last game here in a Tennessee uniform. It's been a great run. Like, he's essentially conceding his time is over. Do you go a full-on reboot? Could Vrabel survive that? I don't know. He's a very good coach. Is there a world where Russell Wilson comes in and it's like, oh, we convinced Derrick Henry to stay. We have Nuke Hopkins, who showed pretty well. We got a healthy Burks, the young tight end whose name I won't butcher, starting to show well. We just got to fix the offensive line. And, oh, by the way, the division kind of sort of stinks. I know 3 teams are in the playoff mix. Smoke and mirrors with the Colts. We don't know what they'll be like with Anthony Richardson. Trevor Lawrence trending downwards without question. And then C.J. Stroud. We'll see how he bounces back from the concussion. He was excellent, no doubt, and they should ante up in the wide receiver department. But I think of those 3 AFC teams, the best chance of winning quickly would be in Tennessee for sure, mostly because of the division.
Yeah, that was Jason McIntyre of Fox Sports on the Straight Fire podcast. So that was on his podcast, and he tweeted just a few days ago, Mike Vrabel, 3 straight winning seasons in the playoffs, and then 2 straight losing seasons without a quarterback. This idea that they're set at quarterback with Levis next season is comical. Derrick Henry stuff will be interesting. Russell Wilson will be firmly in the discussion. D-Mase, your reaction. Should Russell Wilson be firmly in the discussion for the Titans?
Hell no. I mean, again, you have people that, and I understand he does it from a sort of a national standpoint. I get it. But we've talked about this before, Caroline, that the national view and what we see locally here every day always are on two different spectrums.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, it never fails. Like when you hear someone nationally, other than Diana Rossini, if you hear someone nationally talk about the Tennessee Titans, it's like as if they haven't watched this team at all, like none, or maybe watched them one time. He probably watched Will Levis one time when he didn't play well. That's it. And he watched them one time and said, oh, they need a quarterback.
And it was probably the Pittsburgh game on
exactly.
Thursday.
On Thursday,
Yeah.
What was it, Monday night or Thursday night?
Thursday night in Pittsburgh.
Yes. So there's no way in hell that the Tennessee Titans should even think about bringing Russell Wilson in here, unless you want to bring him in as a backup. That's good because that's what he's teetering more as a backup than a bona fide starter. He's teetering more with a guy that has to go in and compete for a starting job rather than going in and knowing you have the starting job. Again, I don't understand where these individuals sort of get their train of thought from. Because again, we're watching a team that went away from their quarterback in Ryan Tannehill because of injury. They relied or they went to a young quarterback. And when they went to that young quarterback, it was, we're not going back. We're staying with this young quarterback unless he gets injured. He got injured. They put in the prior quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. It didn't go well. They're going back to the rookie, and the rookie is going to get an opportunity, not just this season, but next season to show that he's the franchise guy. Once they start putting pieces around him, they will get a better evaluation of what he is as a quarterback. They know he can play in this league, but is he their franchise quarterback? I am not going to get a Russell Wilson to be my franchise quarterback. That doesn't even sound like a logical and sensible thing to do. I'm tired of these national people that really don't spend time here looking at this team, throwing stuff against the wall that don't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to bring him in as a starter. If you want to bring him as a backup, yes, do it. I will raise my hand and agree to that all day. But I'm not bringing him in as my starter. No way, no how.
The idea is laughable. The idea is almost even moronic. And I think you're right, D-Mase. It plays into the fact that people that cover the entire National Football League, national talking heads, they don't know anything about the Titans. I mean, you heard in that clip, Jason McIntyre wouldn't even attempt to pronounce Chigakonkwo's name.
Exactly. If you've been following, you know you can pronounce his last name.
It's not that difficult.
Exactly. People. It's not like the guy at UT. Hard. It's not like the quarterback at UT. Even though you've been around him, you still have an opportunity. You still have.
That's a toughie.
Exactly. You still have a tough time pronouncing his last name. Chigakonkwo, that's not tough. If you've been following the team.
It is so frustrating that he can look at it from a 360-foot view and say, oh, Will Levis not good enough. Got to bring Russell Wilson in. I don't see how Russell Wilson would be the answer, not just to this Titans team, but D-Base. I don't really know if Russell Wilson is the answer for anyone. He's old. Yes. Russell Wilson is 35 years old. I wouldn't want to commit my franchise to 2, 3, hell, even 4 years of Russell Wilson when his best days are behind him. He's not playing very well. I mean, he could have some better pieces around him in Denver. I'll give him that. But he's gotten one of the best offensive minds in the National Football League as his head coach. And he still has trouble turning the ball over. I mean, in the most clutch times, if Denver is driving, if they're in the red zone, how many times has Russell Wilson fumbled the football or turned the ball over? I don't know off the top of my head how many number like what the exact number is. Too many for my liking. For a veteran quarterback to be making stupid mistakes like that. I don't trust Russell Wilson with the football. He's old.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd probably command a lot of money. And we can get into the dollars and cents and exactly what that would look like in Denver. I think Denver would like to trade Russell Wilson, but I think that 31 other teams in the National Football League understand that the Broncos have to let go of Russell Wilson before March, before they're on the hook for that, $40 million. So they know that they have to cut him at some point. So if I'm a team that's interested in Russell Wilson, I'm just going to wait until they set him free so I don't have to put forth the draft capital.
Nope.
And so it just doesn't make sense. He's not good, and he's old.
Yeah, nobody. Go ahead. I'm
you
sorry.
bring up the backup quarterback idea. I'm with you. If you even entertained it, it would have to be in a backup role. And I don't know Russell Wilson personally. Everything that I've heard about Russell Wilson, especially in Denver, leads me to believe that he's not a very good teammate. Leads me to believe that he is very much an I before the team kind of guy, like how he demanded an office on the same floor as the general manager and the higher ups, that he didn't want to be around the rest of the team. The things that he was demanding was very me, me, me. It's all about me. I am the franchise. I want to be bigger than the team. That doesn't sound like he'd be a good Mike Vrabel fit. Doesn't sound like he'd be a good culture fit within this locker room. And frankly, D-Mase, it doesn't sound like somebody that I would want to be behind my young quarterback. Sounds like Russell Wilson wants to be a starting quarterback. And I don't want to put that pressure on my young quarterback. I want someone who comes in and is happy to be that veteran, that kind of veteran presence for a blossoming young quarterback that's like, hey, you know what? I'm here for anything that you need. I don't see Russ as that kind of guy.
No, I mean, listen, he's been in this league too long. And every guy that has, sustained success in this league, that become starters, they have a hard time taking that backup role as they get older.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, I don't think he would, and I don't expect him to, and I don't blame him to be okay with just being a backup. He's been a starter his whole career, 10 years plus. Won a Super Bowl, had some really good seasons, Pro Bowl, All-Pro. You expect him to now take a back seat? It may not work out that way. Which, I mean, listen, he has to. He may have to. But will he? How will he adjust to being the guy to not being the guy? That's a huge adjustment for a guy that has been on the top for as long as he was on the top in regards to his play and his teams. To then ask him to take a lesser role with another team, it has to be the right team with in the right situation. And even here in Nashville, the thought of bringing him in as a starter is a no. To bring him in as a backup may be a no too. Because to me, I don't think it would take him a hard time. He would have a hard time accepting a backup role to a second-year guy. That's just the way I see it. But the way Denver has handled this whole thing has been classless, and it's Sean Payton's ego. That's what it is. We talk about Russell Wilson wanting it his way. He wants it his way. Sean Payton, he wants it his way. I don't feel sorry for Denver. You gave him the money. You wanted Aaron Rodgers.
They put themselves in this position.
Exactly. You wanted Aaron Rodgers, couldn't get Aaron Rodgers. So what did you do? You went out and got Russell Wilson. It hadn't worked out. But you decided to pay him all that money. And then, Sean comes in and off the rip doesn't like him. Here's the problem. When you sit behind sit in front of a television, on a panel for a year, and you watching guys, and you're commenting on those guys, and your comments aren't like glowing. Then when you get an opportunity to coach that individual, you done already made up your mind. You already walked in there, made up your mind that this isn't my guy, but I got to deal with it for at least a year. Well, it was bad. It got good for him a little bit. And now they seem to be trending the other way. But your quarterback has played pretty good. He's played winning football majority of the times. Why don't you fire your head? Why don't you fire your defensive coordinator who's giving up 25 points per game? They got a 70 burger put on them. A 70 burger in the NFL. How many times does that happen?
Probably
That's
never.
embarrassing. And that had nothing to do really with Russell Wilson. It had everything to do with your defensive coordinator and you head coach. But you don't see it that way. You the scapegoat is, let's just get rid of Russell Wilson. He said, I can't change the offensive line. I can't change this guy. Well, yeah, you can. You can if you want to, but you don't. You don't want Russell Wilson as your quarterback, which is, okay, it's fine. But the way you're doing it, you would have never did Drew Brees that way. You damn sure wouldn't have done any other quarterback that way. But you chose to do Russell Wilson that way. If he's not your guy, he's not your guy. But to bench him with 2 games left, let him finish out the season. That's me. Because you can't stop injury. Hell, he can get injured in practice unless you're telling him not to practice.
I think at this point they might just be wrapping him up in bubble wrap and saying, don't leave your house, don't do anything, because they know what they're on the hook for. And look, I'm with you, D-Mase. I don't feel bad for Denver. They got themselves in this position.
Mm-hmm.
And when it happened, let's go back. This was, 2 years ago? That was not that long ago when this move happened. I remember thinking, I don't know. That's a lot to trade for Russell Wilson. That's a lot to pay Russell Wilson. Is Russell Wilson really going to be the answer in Denver? And obviously, clearly, we got that answer a lot quicker than I anticipated. And the answer was unequivocally, no, he's not the guy. But that's Denver's problem. But when it comes to Jason McIntyre and what he said about Tennessee being the best fit for Russell Wilson in the AFC, frankly, I don't see that at all. And that is coming from somebody that I don't think has paid even just one single iota to this team, that traded up in the second round to get Will Levis, that is committed to Will Levis. And honestly, I don't even think Jason McIntyre has a good take on what Russell Wilson is at this point in his career.
No.
He's not coming in to save a franchise. He's not coming in to help a hurting franchise. He's been kicked out of the last 2 places he's gone. I don't think that Russell Wilson is really the answer to the Titans or anyone. But that's what I want to get into coming up next. What is the future for Russell Wilson, and how does that affect the quarterback carousels we get into the 2024 offseason? We'll get into that, and we will get into your phone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Willy Donick will join us later on in the show. He is in Detroit. The Predators in action tonight against the Red Wings. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, we're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
Obviously, it's difficult, and all of us feel like, man, we didn't do well enough. But one of the things we saw when we signed Stidham in the offseason was not only film from preseason games, but regular season games. And, he's a guy that, I'm anxious to see play. And if I didn't feel like he gave us the chance to win, then we wouldn't be making that move. And so the irony is, obviously, is he was in a situation that many would say is very similar, and yet I would say it's somewhat different. But that's kind of where we're at with it.
All right, there you go. That was Broncos head coach Sean Payton. D-Mase, do you buy it that Sean Payton is just so enamored with Jarrett Stidham and he thinks that that Jarrett Stidham really does give that team the best chance to win? You buy that?
I have a bridge. I just purchased this bridge in New York that I want to sell to you. Will you buy it? Nah, probably not. Absolutely. So I don't buy this either. I don't buy not one bit. He's stuttering over this. It's just like, dude, okay, I can't expect him to really say, listen, I don't like Russell Wilson. I want to move on from Russell Wilson. He's not my guy. I don't expect him to say that. But to sit here, did you hear when he said Stidham gives us not, because usually coaches say, the backup quarterback or this guy gives us a better chance at winning. He left out the better. He just said he gives us a chance to win. Russell Wilson gave you a chance to win.
Heck, I can give you a chance.
Exactly. That's why when you listen to people, these coaches especially, listen to them. They give you key words. They give you key things if you're really paying attention. They will give you what they're truly thinking without giving it to you. I listen to Vrabel very closely when he says certain things. It's like, nah, man. You're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. That ain't what you really mean. You listen to Sean Payton. He removed the word best. That may not be big to, just the average, casual fan, but that means a lot because when coaches make changes in regards to their quarterbacks, and it doesn't have to do with injury, they say this guy we feel gives us the best shot at winning. They don't say give us a shot at winning. Hell, you could put Jerry Jeudy back there. He gonna give you a shot at winning.
Yeah, why not?
Exactly. Yeah. So this had nothing to do.
He's lying through his teeth.
Huh?
He's lying through his teeth.
Exactly. So it's like, dude, everybody sees this. And if you don't, you're either a Sean Payton homer or you don't want to see it. This had nothing to do with the Denver Broncos winning football games. This had everything to do with him and Russell not being on the same page. And it started the minute he took the job. Exactly.
I don't think he ever wanted Russell Wilson.
Absolutely.
This idea of Sean Payton went to Denver because he wanted to work with Russell. Get out of here with that. There was no other job for Sean Payton.
No.
Denver was the only available option. Sean Payton took it, and this was probably his plan all along. He probably thinks Russell Wilson is trash. And honestly, I think Russell Wilson's kind of a boob. But I want to get your thoughts on it. Jason McIntyre of Fox Sports went on his podcast, the Straight Fire podcast, said he thinks that Tennessee is the best AFC option for Russell Wilson. I personally don't believe there is a single circumstance in which Russell Wilson is the best option for the Tennessee Titans and vice versa. But I want to get your thoughts on this. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland is on the line. What's up, Adam?
Hey, guys. Hey, Happy New Year, first off.
Happy New
Same
Year.
to you, Adam.
So, Caroline, I don't completely disagree with you. However, you get so excited, like you get to talking about stuff, and I think it bleeds back over to your Jared days. Russell doesn't suck. He's not a terrible quarterback. Like he's a Super Bowl
When did I say that
quarterback,
Russell Wilson sucks?
You said he's kind of a boob. Like I take it as the same thing.
Because I do think he's kind of a boob. Is he not? Broncos country, let's ride. That has nothing to do with his on the field play. I just think he's kind of a weirdo.
he's a goober. Like, I wouldn't be friends with him, but like, I don't think
That's
he's
my
a bad
point.
quarterback. Like,
I didn't say he's a bad
honestly,
quarterback.
as long as he has a Hall of Fame coach, which is what he had. Like, he had a really good coach in Seattle, and Sean Payton actually made him into something. But then he turns into like Brock Osweiler if he doesn't have a real coach. So I would say Mike Vrabel is not good enough to get anything out of Russell Wilson. I think it has to be a good pairing, but I don't think he's done. Like, I mean, you just think, D-Mase, think of like the 99 team, how important Neil O'Donnell was to our team. Like, a good veteran can be really important to a football team, if placed right. But I do agree with you saying that Russ is like, he's too me, and I don't think it would be a good fit here at all.
I
am with you, Adam.
Listen, you bring up the Neil O'Donnell days, and Neil understood, the situation. He knew that Steve was the quarterback. He was the starter. He was the franchise quarterback. But also, Steve got hurt often because of his style of play. And back then, they didn't call penalties for, landing on the quarterback the way that they did back then. You can't do that. Now they might suspend you for 3 or 4 games if you do that. So Steve took a lot of hits, and he was bruised and battered. So getting Neil O'Donnell was a calculated move, because if Steve goes down, we can have a veteran guy that has been to a Super Bowl, that has led a team to a Super Bowl, that has played some really damn good football. If we need him, he's there. And I think Neil understood that. Did Neil want to be a starter? I'm sure Neil wanted to be a starter. But Neil understood, hey, listen, this is Steve's team. I'm going to come in and do my job if I have to. And that's just what Neil did. Russell, I was about to say Russell Westbrook, but Russell Wilson, I think from a mental standpoint, he still believes he can be a bona fide starter in this league. And this season doesn't, how he played this season isn't contrary to what he's thinking. It's not like he had a season like he did last year, but him still thinking he's a starting quarterback. Then you would be looking at Russ like, man, listen, don't you know you've had 2 terrible seasons? You're not a starter anymore. But he hasn't had a terrible season this season. He's had a pretty good season. His team's been bad. His defense has been horrible. I'm going to see what Sean Payton does with that, if he keeps Van Johnson or not. Vance Joseph, excuse me. But Russ, I'm not sure he's going to want to go anywhere else and compete for a starting job. I go back, when guys have been starters in this league for a long time and they've had success, extended success, it's hard for them, especially when they think they can still play in their numbers, tell you they can still be a starting quarterback in this league. It's hard for them to take a back seat. And you can't if he really paid attention to what was going on here in Nashville, Nashville wouldn't be on the list of places Russell Wilson would go. Because
it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, but it starts turmoil that doesn't need to be started. You got rid of you move from Ryan Tannehill, and then you go get another guy that has been a starter in this league for 10 years. And how many people you are going to start to speculate, if indeed they bring him in, oh, he's going to be the starting quarterback. It's just a matter of time, Russell Wilson. It's just a matter of time. You know what that does to your locker room? Nothing good. It does nothing good. Levis needs to walk in here next season during the preseason and OTAs. He needs to walk in knowing he's the guy. I'm the guy. I don't have to look over my shoulder. You bring in a Russell Wilson, as this cat has explained. Oh, you're gonna start that up. Is Will Levis the franchise? Well, if he is, why are they bringing in a Russell Wilson? You don't do that. So he has no idea what's going on here in Nashville.
You are effectively giving up on Will Levis if you bring in a Russell Wilson.
Exactly.
I don't think they're ready to give up on Will Levis. And if they
No.
are, they lost a whole lot of credibility and a whole lot of respect from me. Because everything that I've seen from Will Levis, will he become Tom Brady? I hope so. I don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could he crash and burn eventually? Maybe. I don't know that. But I've seen enough from Will Levis that I really like that I can say, okay, that's your quarterback next year. Show me more that you can be the quarterback moving forward. But I'm in no position to feel the need to replace the young quarterback. But that kind of leaves the question of where is the perfect place for Russell Wilson? It's not Tennessee. And some other teams that I've heard thrown out there, New England being one of them. But also, isn't New England going to be in the top 3, top 5 pick this upcoming draft? If I'm New England, I'm going to draft my quarterback of the future. I've heard Washington be thrown out there a little bit. But if I'm Washington, do I want to continue to get back into quarterback purgatory, where I'm just good enough that I'm not picking in the top 5 to get a quarterback of the future, but also I'm just bad enough that I'm missing out on the playoffs, and you're 500 or below 500 moving forward. So it's tough. I don't know if there is a perfect fit out there for Russell Wilson.
I mean, he can. I see teams like Pittsburgh. Are they truly sold on their quarterback? They can't be. The kid had. If you expect to win with God, what's the quarterback's name again?
Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, Kenny Pickett. If you expect to win with Kenny Pickett, it's going to be a uphill battle. With you got to have a damn good. You better have a damn good defense, because even with the playmakers that he has, this team still struggles. They need a quarterback that knows exactly what to do, that have been in moments like that can orchestrate a drive, that you don't have to worry about. And listen, Russ is not he's not the greatest, but he's a good quarterback. He's still a good quarterback. I've always seen him as just a good quarterback, not an elite quarterback, but a good quarterback that you can win with if you surround him with pieces. He's Ryan Tannehill. That's just what he is. He is Ryan Tannehill. So to me,
Ryan Tannehill with higher expectations.
Exactly. Pittsburgh is a team. The Vegas Raiders could be a possibility.
Raiders, Falcons.
Falcons is a possibility. Let me see. Other team, Minnesota could be a possibility depending on what they, do with their quarterback. So there are teams that he could potentially go to, but he's going to have to compete for that job. Because if you're talking about Washington and Chicago and some of these, no, they're going to draft their quarterback. New England, they're going to draft their quarterback. They're not in the business of going to get another quarterback that had a up season this year but a bad season last year. So you don't know, and it's not like he's going to get any better. He is who he is. So to me, teams that are on at the bottom, Arizona, Carolina already has their quarterback. But other teams that are going to be in a position to pick in the top 5, they're looking to get their franchise quarterback. They're not looking to get a retread starting quarterback. They're not looking to get that. So again, the Tennessee Titans are not in the market to go and get a retread quarterback to be their starting quarterback. They have their starting quarterback. So there's going to be a place for Russell Wilson, but he may have to wait because no one's going to pay him upwards of $30 million. Nobody's going to pay him that unless you're just desperate.
There's some desperate teams out there.
Yeah, there teams have been known to be desperate. Out some desperation.
Exactly. Okay, let's get into a few of your phones on this. Randy Texan says, isn't there something in his contract regarding having to be able to pass a physical in early March, or they owe him next year's $39 million? Not sure the details, but I heard him being benched was more contract related. 100% it was contract related. That's what Sean Payton said, is it's football related, but I think it all has to do with the dollars and cents and the money of that massive contract that would be guaranteed. 1, if he got hurt, or 2, if they cut him, 3, if he's under center in 2024. There's several different concessions in his contract, but I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is if he's unable to pass a physical in March, he's owed nearly $40 million. They don't want to get into that.
No, they don't want to get into it. But listen, if I'm Russ, and I'm sure he, at this point he probably is like, let me just get out of here and go to another team and start over again.
Yeah.
But if I'm Russ, I'm like, okay, all right, I'll practice and do all those things you want me to do. But, my back hurt. and my back's going to be hurt
Yeah.
for the next 3 months. You know, so when I go to take that physical, it's like my back hurt. I can't. So now
Into it.
you can't pass the physical. Now what do you do as a Denver Bronco organization? Because you could have waited to the end of the season, let Russ play it out, wait to the end of the season, and just say, hey, listen, this is the direction we're going in. And we just feel that we're going to go with the younger guy next year. Thank you, but no thank you, and let him go his way. But you made this thing into a messy disaster, and it's all because of your head coach.
It's a mess. And it could very well go down as one of the worst trades in the history of the NFL.
Of course.
Oh,
And you don't want to be a team that's in that category.
it's going to hurt their franchise for years to come. And I think we all maybe could have seen the writing on the wall back when it happened in 2021. All right, let's continue the conversation coming up next. We'll get back into your phones. Ask D-Mase in less than 1 hour. So get those questions in for D-Mase. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Plus, we'll get into some headlines across the NFL. One of D-Mase's boys who's the talk of the NFL after last night. We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Happy Friday, everyone. Listen, I know you bet on games yesterday. You saw that Cleveland game and that wonderful, wonderful performance by Joe Flacco last night. So if you bet on that game, I know you did it with our partners, Zen Sports, who, I'm excited to tell you that they're launching their new introductory promotion. Available to all new customers in Tennessee. It's the No Danger First Wager. When you sign up for the Zen Sports account, you will receive up to $1,000 No Danger First Wager. When you place your first bet on Zen Sports, you will be reimbursed for the amount of your bet if it loses up to $1,000. Plus, Zen Sports has launched a new VIP program for the premier bettors of Tennessee. If you think you might qualify, then listen up. The VIP program is by invite only. So if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, please check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. No other sport book will offer a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer support and bigger and better action than Zen Sports. So, what are you waiting for? Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
Chase and Big Joe show will be live at Competitive Edge Strength and Conditioning in Hermitage on January 2nd from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Come stop by to check out an awesome locally owned and operated gym. Plus, you can win some Preds tickets as well as a free membership to Competitive Edge. So check that out on the Chase and Big Joe show on January 2nd. All right, D-Mase, I have a couple apologies that I need to issue. One of them is to you.
Okay.
Because a few weeks ago, you told me, I think the Browns are going to be better off with Joe Flacco than they would be with Deshaun Watson. And I thought, what? D-Base, I know he's your boy and all, but I don't know if I'd go that far. I apologize. You are 100% correct. My goodness, the Browns clinched the playoffs last night. Joe Flacco carved up the Jets defense, and that's a good defense. And he carved him up. 3 touchdowns, over 300 passing yards. He did have the pick 6. But Joe Flacco has been unstoppable at 38 years old coming off the couch. You were 100% right, D-Mase. I owe you an apology.
Well, I mean, thank you, Caroline. I do appreciate that. The Jets are the, 9th ranked defense in the National Football League, only giving up, 176 yards passing. They do give up a lot running, but, I'm sure that's a lot of quarterback and all that other stuff. So you're going against a good defense. These guys are no slouches. And Joe Flacco was able to go in there and put on a performance on Thursday night. So much so that the old man fell asleep on the sideline for about 2 seconds. I've been there before. Hey, listen, I've been there before. When you playing late at night and you're up and you get on the sideline and that heat is hitting you and it's cold and those fumes, yeah, you doze off for a couple of minutes there. And it seemed like that's what Joe did. But no. Joe, I don't
blame him.
Yeah, I don't either. I probably would have laid down on the bench after having that game that he had. But he fits, to me, he fits who they are as a organization and as a team. Not saying that Deshaun Watson can't or will not fit who they are, but I think they tried to fit, they tried to fit into Deshaun Watson's box instead of fitting Deshaun Watson into their box. And I understand why. You guaranteed the man $230 million. So, yeah, you're going to fit inside his box. It's not going to be the other way around. And I think it caused Stefanski, a little bit of, what he wanted to do as an offense. Yeah. But you get Joe Flacco, who now you fit Joe Flacco into what you want to do. Because you're not paying him $230 million. You know exactly who he is as a quarterback. He's still a big, strong, physical guy that, again, can throw through a hurricane. And you need that type of quarterback, big hands, big, sturdy guy that can throw through those elements and play in those elements in Pittsburgh. I'm not saying Deshaun can't, but hell, Deshaun played in Clemson, then he went to Houston. I mean, you ain't got too many cold weather games, going on.
Yeah.
But you come to Cleveland, and for whatever reason, you struggle. But then Joe gets in, and it's like he's been a quarterback the whole season because he gives them exactly what they need as a quarterback. Again, I go back to big, physical, strong, big hands, can throw through a hurricane. He's throwing the deep ball better than he has in the last 5 or 6 years. He has playmakers around him. And more importantly, he has a defense that if he makes a mistake, his defense is going to get the ball back for him. So he doesn't sit back.
Last night.
Exactly. He doesn't sit back there like cautious. No, he's like, listen, throw caution to the wind because I know that if indeed I do throw an interception or fumble the ball, our defense is going to do their job and get me the ball back. So I can't see. I think that was probably the best thing that happened for this team. Not necessarily for Deshaun. I hope he gets healthy and is able to come back next year and can have a great season. But I think for this Browns team, that was a blessing in disguise because now you went and got a guy that fits who you want to be as a team. But yet and still, he can give you that business if you're not paying attention. And Joe's been giving every team that business since he's been a starter.
It's been so impressive. And I also have to issue an apology to Kevin Stefanski. I thought for the past couple of seasons, I thought he was kind of a dead man walking.
Uh-huh.
I thought that there was a certain ceiling that you would get with Kevin Stefanski as your head coach. I thought, all right, this might be the year that they move on from Kevin Stefanski. But this year, you don't have your $230 million quarterback. One of the top running backs in the National Football League goes down early in the season. You don't have him, yet you're still able to win football games and make the playoffs. Now, that probably does have more to do with Jim Schwartz and the defense. That defense has carried Cleveland through a majority of their games so far this season, where they can afford to be banged up a little bit more offensively. But still, I mean, it's all a trickle up effect. We give credit to the head coach, we give blame to the head coach. So I have to issue an apology to Kevin Stefanski a little bit, because this Browns team has been able to achieve a whole lot more than I expected, especially without Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson.
They have been, and it goes to show you that the superstar quarterback isn't always going to turn your franchise around, or he's going to be the guy necessarily for your offense. Getting Deshaun Watson was great in theory for Cleveland. And I'm not saying it's not going to work moving forward, but I'm saying it was great in theory. Why? Because Cleveland was desperate for a quarterback. Cleveland hadn't had a quarterback since not Robert Holcomb, since Holcomb. They haven't had a quarterback. We go back, when was that? That was about 20 years ago. I know they had Baker Mayfield, but Baker Mayfield
those were tumultuous
Exactly.
years.
They were up and down. But Kelly got them to the playoffs. So to me, they hadn't had a quarterback, a legit guy that could lead them to a playoff since Kelly Holcomb. Now you have a guy, again, that fits who you want to be as a team. Big arm, physical guy that can throw the ball through just about anything. And you have the guys that can get deep, that he can display that strong. He's 38 years old and still can throw the deep ball just as good as anybody in the NFL.
If 2021 wasn't the year of overpaying, underperforming quarterbacks, I don't know what was. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, two franchises that pushed every single chip in the middle in order to get their, well, at least what they thought was their quarterback of the future. Now look at them. Jarrett Stidham and Joe Flacco. Those are now your answers in Denver and Cleveland. All right, we'll continue the conversation coming up next, but we do have a Titans game on Sunday, a rematch with the Houston Texans. We're getting a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of what the division looks like for the foreseeable future, and how do we feel about the Titans in the AFC South for the foreseeable future. We'll get into that coming up next. We'll get into your phones coming up next. Ask D-Mase in 30 minutes. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Tomorrow, tune in for the TransPerfect Music City Bowl on 1025 The Game as Auburn goes up against Maryland at Nissan Stadium. Pre-game coverage begins at noon, presented by Green Trees Company, and kickoff is at 1 p.m. Get tickets today at musiccitybowl.com. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025, 1063, The Game, and the Game Nashville app. We are live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios, and we're streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. Willy Donick will join the show in 1 hour. He's holding down the fort in Detroit. Predators take on the Red Wings tonight in Detroit. Puck drop at 6 o'clock. All of your pregame coverage starting right here on 1025 The Game at 5 p.m. Chris Mason will also join us in 1 hour as well. Normally on Fridays, he joins us at 11:30. With the travel schedule, he will join us at 1 o'clock, so we'll get a full Predators preview and Predators breakdown with Chris Mason at 1 o'clock. Ask D-Mase in 30 minutes. So get those questions in for Derek Mason. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We can take your call, take your calls and your texts. Anything is on the line for Ask D-Mase. We'll get to that in 30 minutes. Titans are out on the practice field now, last run through before they take on the Houston Texans on Sunday. D-Mase, is it fair to assume that Will Levis is going to play on Sunday?
It seems like that's the way it's trending. I saw some clips, of Will getting underneath center, and albeit it was, pre-practice in the warm-ups, but him seeming like he's moving around like he doesn't. I didn't see a noticeable limp or anything. So if that is indeed the case, then I would assume that he would be the starter, or he will be the starter this Sunday, because frankly, Caroline, you saw it just like I saw it. I mean in the game, it didn't look good for Tannehill. It just didn't. Excuse me.
Ooh.
But I think he
struggled.
Yeah, I think he was. I don't want to say it seemed like he had happy feet. It seemed like he was never comfortable in the pocket, and I get it. I wouldn't be comfortable.
I doubt he was.
I wouldn't be comfortable in that pocket either. After y'all 5 guys just got me hurt 6 weeks ago and cost me my job this season, I wouldn't be comfortable around, in the pocket with them either.
No.
But it seemed like he was a little bit gun shy. It seemed like he had happy feet. He
held on to the ball far too long.
He didn't seem like he trusted, himself out, or he trusted what was out there. Not that he didn't trust the receivers. One, it just seemed like he was rusty. He didn't have that, connection with them as he had before. But then it just seems like he was a little bit off, like he didn't trust things. He didn't trust the offensive line. There were passes, guys wide open. Traylon Burks coming across the middle of the field would have been a big play. You threw it behind him. He gets knocked down. It's a penalty. You almost get the guy decapitated because of whatever you're thinking, or whatever is causing you to either speed up your throws or short arm your throws. Mm-hmm. It's happening, or it happened last week. And if I'm Mike Vrabel, and if Will Levis is 100% or 95%, I got to put him back in the game, because at least he doesn't know what he doesn't know. Ryan Tannehill knows all that stuff. He's been beat up, knocked down for 2 years. He knows. Will Levis don't know that part yet. Will Levis knows, I've been knocked down a few times, but not like Ryan Tannehill. So, again, he knows what he don't know. He don't know what he don't know, excuse me.
I was pretty disappointed in Tannehill against Seattle on Sunday. It was mistakes that he was making that if Will Levis makes those same mistakes, I'm disappointed, yes, but I'm thinking to myself, all right, rookie, you got to learn from that. You got to learn that you can't do that. You got to learn that the ball has to come out quicker than that. You got to learn that you can't put Chris Moore in the line of fire like that. Mm-hmm. Ryan Tannehill should know those things.
Yes.
Ryan Tannehill does know those things. Yet Ryan Tannehill was continuing to make mistakes that 10-year NFL veterans don't make. So, yeah, I'm with you wholeheartedly that it was a bad day from Ryan Tannehill. Absolutely. And if Will Levis is in a position that he can protect himself, that he is mobile enough, that he can evade pressure, he needs to play. Because those are invaluable reps for Will Levis. That when Will Levis initially went down, I understand that there was a conversation about just sitting him for the rest of the season. I totally understand that mindset of, look, don't continue to throw the young man out there into the line of fire and risk him getting injured even further. I get it 100%, but you can't learn to play quarterback on the bench. And if you can play, you should play. I'm not saying throw a 60% Will Levis out there and say, Will, you better learn. It's going to be tougher than this in the NFL at some point. I'm not saying that, but if he can go, he should go. But D-Mase, if he can go, I am really excited because it looks like CJ Stroud is going to be good to go on Sunday as well, that he finally will have gotten to a point where he can clear concussion protocol. So and I get to see Levis versus Stroud, two quarterbacks that I think are going to be compared a lot throughout the entireties of their career for several reasons. One, in the same draft class, Anthony Richardson is going to be one that's going to be compared as well. They're in the same draft class. They're in the same division.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think that it's fair to compare the two because we know that there was interest from the Titans and CJ Stroud during the draft season. So I'm excited to finally be able to see the two compared against one another. That we're going to see Stroud versus Levis. And I know that the comparison isn't going to be fair because CJ Stroud's working with a much better and much more veteran offensive line. Now, he's not going to have the same pass catching core that he had at the beginning of the season that made him look like Superman, that made him look like a potential league MVP. He doesn't have Tank Dell. But he still is working with more than maybe Will Levis is. So what kind of peek behind the curtain for the future of the AFC South do you think we're going to be able to see on Sunday?
Wow, this is going to be interesting because still you will not be able to see, C.J. Stroud in his full, plethora of playmakers. Tank Dell is gone. Nico Collins, he's not playing this game. So you're talking about two guys that were, instrumental in the season that C.J. Stroud is having as a rookie. But I still think they're going to be able to, do what they did in regards to play calling. Now, if they win or not, I don't know. But they're going to be able to do some of the things they were able to do, 2 weeks ago against the Tennessee Titans. So it really doesn't matter, necessarily who the quarterback is because this is what we want to do. Now, you may be able to do a little bit more because C.J. Stroud he affords you that ability to do that as a coordinator. But I think they're going to attack Tennessee the way they attacked them the last go-around. But now they just have their franchise quarterback underneath center. So I don't want this to be so much about Will Levis and C.J. Stroud because these two teams are in totally two different situations. You already said it about C.J. Stroud. He has a veteran offensive line. He has some playmakers, even though they're not playing now. This team seems to be, they're the Tennessee Titans of, 3 or 4 years ago when Mike took the job. They may not have as many veteran leadership that Tennessee has, but they're a team on the come up in a sense. So you have a team that's on the come up, team that has already found their franchise quarterback, going against another team that has problems at every position on the field. So when they play each other, to me, it's not so much about Will Levis and C.J. Stroud. It's about the two teams, period, because one is on the decline and one is going up the charts. So you just want to see how close the Tennessee Titans can play the Houston Texans, knowing that Houston has the best personnel.
What do you want to see from Will Levis?
I just want to see him continue to progress as a quarterback. I want to see him be definitive on what he does. I don't want to see, some of these him playing sort of hero ball because I think because of what's going on around him, meaning, more importantly, the offensive line, I think sometimes he feels he has to do that and even more because of what's going on with the offensive line. I just want to see him orchestrate the offense the way it's supposed to be orchestrated. I want him to be able to see the field other than D-Hop. I want him to get used to throwing to other guys. D-Hop is going to be there. He's going to be there next year. He's going to be that dude. But you, in order to expand yourself, you got to start finding other weapons. You got to start finding other guys you can rely on. So don't just be locked in on one guy. Share the wealth with everyone else. Allow those guys to show you that they can be, a reliable asset to you. That's what I want to see for him. He's shown the leadership, and I think he needs to continue to show it. But these are the things in regards to Will Levis that I want to see. Just him just continuing to get better, no matter what's going on around him. Yes, he's going to get knocked down probably 8 or 9 times, but get back up, get back underneath center, and go. That's all I want to see from him.
The hero ball, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's what I want to start to see dissipate. Early in your career, I get it. I understand. You're called upon to now be the guy, and you want to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But you, can't put yourself in harm's way in order to do that. Like, I think the Dolphins game is the perfect example when Will Levis is doing his best bull in China shop impression. And it's like, look, dude, sometimes you got to slide.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this team needs you to be healthy. Sometimes you just got to slide. Whether it's that or whether it's electing for the long ball instead of not quite the home run ball, but you got an open receiver right there. Take the easy yards. You don't always have to go for the home run. Whatever it might be, I want Will Levis to take a deep breath. And when it gets into crunch time, because that just looks like how the Titans are going to play games now.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be close, and they're probably going to lose close game. But if it gets to a point where it is close, or you get into a gotta have it moment, I don't want to see Will Levis tense up, get nervous, make a bad decision, throw the ball downfield, then it gets intercepted. Just go through your progressions. You don't always have to be the guy. You don't always have to be the hero. And that's not exclusive to just this game on Sunday against the Texans. That's just what I want to see throughout Will Levis in the last couple of games of the season, because that's going to be the cap on your rookie season. And next year, you no longer get that excuse of, oh, well, he's a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, he's still learning. Oh, well, that's just a rookie mistake. You don't get that anymore. Make your rookie mistakes, but learn from your rookie mistakes. And don't make the same mistakes twice. Because I think the bad habits that we've talked about, D-Mase, the bad habits that we've seen Will Levis get into, that's making the same mistakes twice. Sometimes it's Will Levis's fault, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes, frankly, it's just because of the offensive line. Sometimes it's because receivers aren't open or receivers are dropping balls, whatever it might be. It still falls on the quarterback's shoulders.
Yeah, it does. And you don't want to see him and we discussed this, weeks ago. Don't get into bad habits. Because it is not like you're getting into bad habits because you're just not, that's what you're doing. That's what you do. Or you're aware of it and you just don't care. No, you get into bad habits because of what's in front of you. So you're not throwing, so you're throwing off your back foot when you don't have to, but you are because of the offensive line. You're doing things within the pocket because of the offensive line. You're staring down receivers because of your offensive line, because you want to get the ball away very quickly. Or you're not reading the field the way you need to read it because you're worried about, well, do I have enough time to read the whole field considering how this offensive line has blocked for me since I've become the starter? So when you have a bad offensive line, it causes you to sort of develop, or it can cause you to develop some bad habits that under any other circumstance you wouldn't. That's just like anything, that's just like if you get an injury, say a hamstring injury, and you start to do some things a little bit different. Well, you start to do some things a little bit different because your hamstring hurts. And then when that happens, it may cause your hip to start hurting. Why? Because you're walking a certain way because of the hamstring. So you're developing habits that now are affecting other parts of your body. Well, that is Will Levis to me. He's being affected. He's developing bad habits, or potentially can develop bad habits because of the offensive line. And I don't want to see that happen with him.
Everything about this offensive line makes me lose sleep. What it's doing to Will Levis, what it's doing to the run game. And that's the other thing, is the last time the Texans and the Titans played, Derrick Henry was essentially, rendered useless. Could get nothing going in the run game. And that looks like that's going to be the game plan of any opposing defense that the Titans play is, hey, just take 22 out of the game. Now, we've seen that the Titans can still win games, even if Derrick Henry isn't Superman. We saw it in Miami. And we even heard it on Hard Knocks the week leading up to that game, where Mike McDaniel's talking about Derrick Henry, how they're going to attack Derrick Henry, how they're going to stack the box and make sure that number 22 doesn't run all over us. That looked like that was the game plan for the Houston Texans last time these two teams met. He had less than 10 yards rushing in an entire game. 20 touches, 9 yards. It doesn't happen very often. That's never happened for Derrick Henry. Yes, they were able to win the game in Miami. I don't know. And we can talk about wins and losses really at this season, at this point in the season. Wins and losses, it's, unfortunately, feels like a much less impactful conversation now than maybe it did a few weeks ago, rather. But just the idea of getting Derrick Henry moving, even when the defense's game plan is take 22 away from them, that's what I'm interested to see. The different approach, perhaps, not just with Derrick Henry, but just in the run game in general.
Yeah, I mean, this team, obviously Houston is going to try to take away Derrick Henry. They took him away. Yeah, they took him away the first game. They made it very difficult for him to run. So, to me, I'm happy that Will Levis is back, because if you want to stack the box and try to take away Derrick Henry or the Titans' ability to run the football, then I trust that Will has a strong enough arm to get the ball down the field when he need to. Ryan, it just didn't seem like Ryan had that arm to get the ball or push the ball down the field, and he didn't. Everything was pretty much underneath. So, they're going to force the Titans, because they're going to try to take away Derrick Henry. They're going to force the Titans to throw the football. And this is where they got to capitalize. And in doing that, then maybe it opens up some things for Derrick Henry as well as Tajay Spears.
Yeah. I mean, that at least is what you hope, because 9 rushing yards from Derrick Henry on 20 touches, it's just not good enough. It's not going to cut it. I think the other aspect that I think is intriguing for this game, you could tell the last time that these two teams played, it was personal. Houston took that personal.
Of course.
The fact that they were wearing the Oilers uniforms with the oiled Derrick on the field, that hit them in a sensitive spot, and they played like it. I do wonder now with the Titans, after what went down in the last meeting, after how they just got embarrassed on their home field with Billy White, Shoes Johnson, and Earl Campbell in attendance. How much more personal is it for the Titans now after that first meeting with the Texans?
It should be personal. They got embarrassed.
They should be pissed off.
Yeah, they got embarrassed. And it's not even about them wearing the uniforms. This team is disliked by the Tennessee Titans. They are disliked by the Tennessee Titans. They don't like them. The owner doesn't like them. And you allowed them to come into your building, and they took the game away from you. They seem to be the more physical team the last time y'all played. That typically doesn't happen with a Titans and a Texans meeting. It doesn't happen that way. Usually the Titans are imposing their will on the Houston Texans. Well, this time the Houston Texans imposed their will on the Tennessee Titans. And I'm not saying that the Titans didn't show up and didn't, try to play that type of game. But I think because
they very much so did show up.
Yeah, I guess it did. Yeah, you're right. But because of their head coach.
That might be even worse.
And D'Amico Ryans, he establishes, just like Vrabel established when he came in, that sort of mentality, even though I believe it was still there, but he sort of reignited it again. That's what the Houston Texans coach is doing for them. He's implementing that physical nature, that we're going out and we're coming at you and we're hitting you hard. It seemed like they were hitting Derrick Henry with sledgehammers every time he touched the ball.
Tough to watch.
And that's what they want to be able to do. They want to outbully the bully. Well, the Titans got to take that mantle back this game. They have to. Now, are they going to be able to? I don't know. But you got embarrassed at home against your rival, like your hated rival.
Yeah.
You can't go to their place and the same thing happen. You can't let that happen.
We'll get into Ask D-Mase coming up next. Get those questions in for Derek Mason. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Also, you can tune into 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders are on the road facing Murray State with pregame beginning at 2:30 p.m. and tip-off at 3 p.m. Coverage also available on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3classichits.com.
D-Mase. He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mase.
We'll welcome you in.
Now on Caroline, Willy, and
D-Mase.
on 102.5 and 106.3, The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Ask D-Mase. Get those questions in for D-Mase. We'll take your calls. We'll take your texts. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Ask D-Mase is presented by Calabria Pizza. Come try their pizza in Goodlettsville and Mount Juliet, because life is just too short to eat bad pizza. Let's get into some of those questions for D-Mase. First, Skylar texts in. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Skylar says, did Tannehill hurt his chances on another team next year after blowing the 2-minute drill on Sunday? Nobody was expecting him to win the game, but he took a few sacks that a veteran should know better to do, and the way they messed that last play up, letting the clock hit 0, was just gut-wrenching. It was.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't Ryan Tannehill's best showing as a quarterback, and I'm sure he would love to, redeem himself, but unfortunately he may not be able to, because it seems like, Will has been practicing. I don't think there's any limitations, so it seems like Will Levis will be the starter. Things can change, and obviously they can go to Ryan Tannehill once again, but I think if Will can play, they're going to allow him to play. And it's unfortunate for Ryan, because I don't think that's who he is. What we saw last Sunday, I don't think that's who he is as a quarterback. I think he's a little bit better than that. But unfortunately, he may not get an opportunity to show that.
Chip and Mount Juliet texts in kind of along the same lines of, why don't the Titans use a quicker passing game?
I think they, it's hard because I'm sure they have a lot of quick plays called, or quick passes called. But even with their quick passes, it's hard. What if the defense takes it away, then you got to go to your second option. Well, your second option may not be a slant or hitch. It may be a 15-yard dig or something like that. So I think a lot of it isn't because Tim Kelly doesn't want to call those plays. I'm sure he does, and they do call them. But we got to be able to push the ball down the field. We can't, stand up and throw 5-yard hitches all day. It's going to get old, and the defense is going to figure it out. So, to the texter's question, I do think they have, a quick game portion to them, but it's hard to use because of the offensive line.
Everything is hard to do with this
Exactly.
offensive line. It cripples this entire offense. And I guess you could call the short passing game more of a quicker passing game, because you're not dropping back. You're not, going through reads. You're not setting up a 40-yard pass. But that is something that Tim Kelly addressed a couple of weeks ago, was the short passing game, how that seems to struggle. How, from 20 plus, it seems like Will Levis really, for the most part, can be pretty money.
Yeah.
But it's that 4-yard, 5-yard, 7, 8-yard kind of shorter passing game that might seem to struggle a little bit, which is why it's tough. Let's say it's 2nd and 8. You might want to throw a short 4 or 5-yard slant. Well, if that's an incompletion, now you're set up with 3rd and 8, and then you have to throw it deep.
Yeah, you do. So, I mean, I'm sure there are a bunch of things or some packages that Tim Kelly wants to use or plays he wants to call, but he can't because of the offensive line and its inability to block for the quarterback. So, and it's not going to change because this offensive line is not going to change this season. Next season is where the change will come. And speaking of that, we have a question from Mark in Murfreesboro. He says, D-Mase, you're the GM for the Titans. What is your first move this offseason? I think it's a no-brainer for everybody. It's the offensive line. My first move is to One, get me a bona fide center. And if I can get a right guard or a right tackle, I'm getting that too. But then in the draft, my first course of business is to get a left tackle. I am getting the best left tackle in this year's draft because I think that will help solidify Peter Skoronski and then help solidify the center who you need to go out and get. Aaron Brewer shouldn't be the center next year for this team. Should he be on the team? I believe, yeah, he should be on the team, but he shouldn't be the starting center for this team next year. It should be another guy at his position. So I would address if we're just talking about the offseason free agency, I would first address the center and the right tackle. And then via the draft, I would address the left tackle position.
Here is a hypothetical scenario that I know we're going to go over a million times from now until April draft time. But this is something that has been talked about a lot, and I think it's fitting giving the conversation. Let's say the Titans have the 5th overall pick, just to make it easy. 5th overall pick. Marvin Harrison Jr., let's say hypothetically, is still on the board at number 5. Let's say 2 quarterbacks go, let's say even 3 quarterbacks go in the top 4. Maybe Brock Bowers goes in the top 4. Maybe Joe Alt, the left tackle from Notre Dame, goes in the top 4, whatever it is. Marvin Harrison Jr. is sitting at 5. Do you forego Marvin Harrison Jr. for a left tackle?
Ooh. Man, oh man, oh man. You know what? I would for this reason. Would Marvin Harrison come in and, upgrade your receiving core tremendously? Absolutely he would. Could he be a future Hall of Famer? There's a potential that he can. This is how high they have him rated. Some people have him rated the best player in the draft, period. Regardless of position, he's the best player. Some people do have him ranked number 1. But because it's like a team having a franchise quarterback, but then in the next year's draft, there's another franchise quarterback there. And yeah, you can take him because everybody's saying he's that guy, but you choose not to because you have other areas that you need to plug. Well, the Tennessee Titans fit in that category. Do they have their franchise wide receiver? I don't know because Traylon Burks has been in and out. But what I do know is they don't have an offensive line. So if I'm picking top 3 and a team wants to come up and get Marvin Harrison at 3, well, that team has to either be picking 4th or 5th because I'm not moving down past 5th because I still need to get my left tackle. So if I'm at that spot, say if they make 3 or even 4 and Harrison is still there, I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone with everybody that wants to draft a receiver in the first round. And I'm saying, you know what? You give me some draft picks. You give me some first-round draft picks or some second-round draft picks, and then we can talk. Because if not, then, we may not pick them, but the team right behind us may pick them, and you may lose out. So what do you want to do? I will leverage that to get more picks and still be in a position to get my left tackle.
Oh my goodness, I could never pass up on Marvin Harrison.
I know, Caroline. It is a tough situation to be in. But in a league that is a passing league, you got to have an offensive line that protects. We've seen what happened to the Tennessee Titans this past 2 seasons. We saw what happened to Joe Burrow when he got hit a million times. You can't allow your quarterback to continue to take these hits. He's going to end up being hurt.
What was the Bengals' first-round pick the season after Joe Burrow got hurt?
They won it because they needed another wide receiver. They truly
so did the Titans.
But then they went out in free agency and they paid in free agency to get offensive linemen. I don't know if that's the direction the Titans want to go because they want an offensive lineman for the next 10, 12, 13 years. They've been good at getting left tackles up until the last couple of years. But if you go all the way back to B-Hop, to Roos, to Lawan and some of the guys in between, you're talking about guys that held that position for more than 8 years. That's what the Titans need. Marvin will be great. No doubt he would be great here. But you can't be great if you ain't getting no blocking.
Yeah, Bengals weren't getting any blocking either.
And they
Jamar Chase was the offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I get it. I understand it. But I just
Marvin Harrison.
It would be hard to pass. Again, it would be hard to pass him up. But you got to think about it big picture. You got to think about it.
I am thinking about it big picture.
I got to get my
offensive
Marvin
Harrison
line.
is part of my big picture.
I get it. And listen, and if they were to pick him, I wouldn't be complaining, not one bit, if they picked Marvin Harrison Jr. I wouldn't complain, not one bit. But then I would say, well, you better make sure you get you some offensive linemen. You better pay the money that you need to pay to get you a left tackle. Because if you don't, you're going to be on this carousel again, hoping and praying that your quarterback don't get hurt.
And look, if Treylon Burks turns into that franchise wide receiver, then great. Great. Then you could potentially have 2 franchise receivers if you decide to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. That's, of course, in the context of, the Marvin Harrison being available where the Titans draft. I don't necessarily see that being the case, but who knows? If he does, then great. Then you have 2. I can't count on Treylon Burks doing that. Right now, I don't even know if I can count on Treylon Burks being your wide receiver 2. I think you move forward thinking of Treylon Burks as more of a piece and not a supplementary piece and not a foundational piece. I would have a really, really, really tough time passing up on Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think I'd be able to sleep at night if I passed up on Marvin Harrison Jr.
This is why I say, as hard and difficult a decision that is, you have to make it. If you're in that position to draft him, you look for a trade partner to move down down a slot or 2, and still be able to get, your left tackle, whether it's the kid out of Alabama or the kid out of Penn State, one of those guys that you still are in a position to get. But you may pick up another first-round pick. And, hey, and there are no slouches in this year's draft now. Come on. No? You hadn't even brought up your boy, Malik Neighbors. Come on now. Come on.
I would love
Come on,
Malik
Caroline.
Neighbors. I would love
That's your
Malik
boy.
Neighbors.
So if we can,
he is my boy.
If we could pass up on Marvin Harrison, as hard as that may be, you still are in a position to draft your tackle, and potentially, if you could get finesse a first round out of that, along with yours, you can get Malik Neighbors, or you can get one of these other Keon Coleman out of Florida State, one of these other receivers.
I love Keon Coleman.
So you may not get that guy in Marvin Harrison. But just below him, Malik Neighbors is no slouch. It's not like Marvin Harrison is at 99 and the next guy is at 78 or 80. No, if Marvin's at 99, Malik Neighbors is probably around 95, 96.
Hey, he's a 98.
98, there we go, 98. And then Keon Coleman is right below him, as well as the kid out of Washington. So you still have potential playmakers. Good options exactly. You still got good options in the draft that you can go. But I know it's hard to pass up on a guy that just seems like a surefire can't miss. I get it.
More of your questions for D-Mase coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to participate in Ask D-Mase, Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Make your silly underdog picks for your chance to win weekly prizes. You can play at thegamenashville.com or the 1025 The Game app. Silly Underdog Picks is presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket.
D-Mase. He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mase.
We'll welcome you in.
Now on Caroline, Willy, and
D-Mase.
on 102.5 and 106.3, The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This Monday, the only place to catch the college football playoff is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. Tune in at 4 p.m. as Alabama takes on Michigan, followed by Texas versus Washington in the college football playoff semifinals. Your home for the college football playoffs is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. Let's get back into your questions for D-Mase. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Get into your calls and your texts. Wes and Hermitage is on the line with a question for D-Mase. What's up, Wes?
Good morning, afternoon. How are y'all?
You're
Good.
doing good, Wes.
I'm going to start off with another dad joke, just like always.
Let's go.
What did, and I have to dim this down because we're on the radio, but you'll understand. What did Newton
appreciate that.
say when? Yeah, what did Newton say when he discovered gravity?
What?
It's about to go down.
I like that one. I like it.
That's
Yeah,
a good
man.
one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. But yeah, I man, D-Mase, I cannot agree with you. I cannot agree with you on the
I get it.
offensive line pick.
Uh-huh.
And so my question for you is, I always hear if you draft for a position, for your need of position, that you end up hurting yourself in the long run, that you're supposed to get the best player available. So as much as we need to rebuild the offensive line, why would we not go for a wide receiver, especially one that we know is like, there's no way around it. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be, I mean, it's hard to say, but he's going to be a clutch guy. So I just can't see passing on him if we have the opportunity to get him.
No, I get it. And it would be a hard choice. Thank you for your call, Wes. It would be a hard choice. And listen, this is not about me being right or wrong. I'm just looking at this team as a whole. And what they need and what they would like is two different things. What they would like, is a Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay?
They also need
what they
a
need is an offensive line that can block for that quarterback who is their franchise quarterback, that can get it to a franchise receiver, whoever that franchise receiver ends up being. You can't maximize your potential as an offense if you can't pass the football. And passing the football isn't all about having receivers on the outside. It's about having those five guys up front that need to block for you. I'm only telling y'all because these are things that I've experienced. You know, when there's a bad offensive line, I don't care who you have on the outside. You can have Jerry Rice, Marvin Harrison, his daddy, and Torrey Holt or Jimmy Smith. Let's just say you had those three guys. If I only got 1 second to throw the football, who am I getting it to? I don't even answer that.
I get it.
Nobody. You ain't getting it to
I get it.
nobody. So y'all are not wrong. I'm not saying y'all are wrong on this. This is not about being right or wrong. Because having Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a benefit to the Tennessee Titans. But also having the left tackle from Penn State, also having the left tackle from Notre Dame, also having the left tackle from Alabama. Those guys, too, would be beneficial to what you want to do as an offense for the Tennessee Titans. Again, I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's a tough decision, but it's a decision that you make that will have implications on everybody if you don't make the right one. You go out there and get a receiver and don't beef up this offensive line, you're going to get your quarterback hurt again. And that is the most important person on your team, is your franchise quarterback, Will Levis, who we hope becomes the franchise quarterback. But we won't be able to see that consistently if he doesn't have guys in front of him to block. That's where I'm coming from. I'm just looking at it from sometimes you You just don't. Sometimes if a guy's there, like a Marvin Harrison Jr., and you say, man, whew, I mean, we need a tackle. We need to beef up this offensive line, but Marvin's there. I understand that. I truly do. But what if Caleb Williams is there? What if Drake May is there? See, when you say that, and then those other things come up too, would you take Drake May? Would you take Caleb Williams? If Drake May and Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison were all there at your pick, 3, whatever, would you take any one of those guys? Or would you take the 2 quarterbacks knowing you already got a quarterback?
If it would depend on how you view Drake May or Caleb Williams. I personally, I'm out on Caleb Williams. There's too many red flags for him for me. But if the Titans view it like, man, Drake May, Caleb Williams, those are franchise changers. Those are going to be the Mannings and the Bradys of the future. If they believe that and there's one in their lap, you got to take him, right?
Yeah, you got to take him. But again,
it's the same thing I think with Marvin Harrison. And it all comes down to the board. Because I don't think that you can only draft for need. I think that sets your franchise up in a really tough spot. If the Titans grade it, like we got a tier of elite players, and it's 4 players. It's Caleb Williams, it's Drake May, it's Brock Bowers, and it's Marvin Harrison. Just let me throw out 4. Those are the elite of the elite. Those are franchise-changing players. And then you've got Joe Alt, the left tackle from Notre Dame, and maybe that ranking below elite. Like, great. Going to be a starter, a really good starter for your franchise for a long time moving forward. If one of those elite players falls in your lap, you got to take that elite player. But whether it's a quarterback, a tight end, or a wide receiver.
But elite players aren't just skilled guys. How about the kid from Penn State? I can't even pronounce his name. I'm just going to call him OF. You know.
It's a toughie.
Yeah, it's a tough one, so I'm not going to even put Olua. I'm just going to say that. They are comparing him to Tyron Smith and Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas is a Hall of Famer. So if I can get Joe Thomas type of play, wouldn't that be a playmaker for you?
Yes.
It would be a playmaker for you. Or Joe Alt out of Notre Dame.
If you don't have a tackle ranked in that elite tier that maybe, a Marvin Harrison might be in it, and I'm just speaking hypothetically, you have to go with the higher rated player.
I get going with the high, but okay, if Marvin Harrison is, say Marvin Harrison on somebody's big board, on a Titans big board, Marvin Harrison is the 3rd pick, the 3rd on their board behind the 2 quarterbacks. And then right below him is Joe Alt or the kid out of Penn State or the kid out of Alabama. You are not moving too far from the best next available player. You still got to go in and get you who you perceive to be a 10-time, 8-time All-Pro guy. Again, it's not just about the receivers and the running backs that can be playmakers. No. Big boy down at San Francisco, when they don't have him at left tackle, they look like a much different team. Big Trent Williams, they look like a different team without Big Trent Williams at left tackle. Trent Williams is a playmaker. He may not he's not the playmaker in a true definition of playmaker, but he's a playmaker because he protects that blind side and he gives Purdy enough time to throw to those other playmakers. Without that offense is different when Trent Williams is in game. It's totally different. So to me, if Marvin is at 4, Alt is at 5, we need a tackle. I'm going with Alt, not to say because I don't like Marvin Harrison, but because I am still getting a playmaker, but at the tackle position for the next 10 to 12 years.
Hopefully. And that's hopefully for any position.
That's
draft.
For any position.
This is a draft the Titans can't afford to screw up.
You're right.
You screw this one up, and you are digging yourself an even deeper hole that you have already dug yourself in after the last few drafts. All right, appreciate everyone for their questions for D-Mase. Now we'll switch to C-Mase. Chris Mason will join us coming up next. Willy Donick will also join the party. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Slick backhand try right in front of Chris Mason. And now the quick pass down the middle, breaking in, and the backhand stop by Chris Mason. And Marlowe with a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1, and what a stop by Mason. Chichu right in front, and what a stop on Ekman by Mason.
And goal, number 3, Chris Mason.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We're live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Game Studios. And joining us now is the one, the only C-Mase, Chris Mason, brought to you by Coleman Tractor, Middle Tennessee's leading Kubota dealer. Normally joins us at 11:30 on Fridays, joining us at 1 o'clock, given the travel to Detroit. But C-Mase, appreciate you for joining us. Hope you had a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you. We got to see the first of Yaroslav Askarov just a few days ago against the Carolina Hurricanes. Only a little bit from what we saw from him, but what did you take away from him? What did you like from the young gun against the Hurricanes?
Yeah, I liked what I saw. I mean, I thought that was that's a no-brainer, great move there by Andrew Burnett, just saying, hey, just get Saros out of there, not his night. Let's see what the kid's got, get him some more experience. And one thing that I noticed, which he actually commented on after the game, Askarov did, is somebody asked him, you get that exciting, kind of high octane style of play, taking chances and things like that. And he's like, I still do that once in a while, but I don't do it as much as I used to. I think he seems a little more mature and just kind of understanding, when to do that. I think when you're a young kid and you're all fired up all the time, you always want I want to do everything. I got to go here. I'm going to get the puck out of the blue line. I don't care. I'm going to skate it. You're just all excited about that. He's got a great personality. And I think we could see in that period, as you guys probably know too, he's got elite skills. He is an incredible athlete. And, that's why when he was drafted, everybody said, all the scouting reports and all the different organizations that scout those prospects, that he's one of the best prospects that they've seen in over a decade. And now that you see he's getting the experience in the American Hockey League, he's getting to understand the grind and the lifestyle and, playing on a team with, expectations, and he's learning English. He's doing so much stuff, right? It's hard for a young kid, but I saw development in that, and I'm seeing a more mature Askarov than we did maybe a year ago.
What is the role for an Askarov with UC Saros playing at such a high level?
Well, his role is, depending, is to come up and make an impression and keep, when he goes down. I think the challenge too for a younger player, he's going to get up here this time, and I'm guessing he's going to sense that maturity. He's practicing against, NHL guys. I saw him in the pregame skate. He did well. He looked really good. You're stopping NHL players, and every player, especially a goalie, you get a realization of when you feel that you can play and not just go up there and, stop a couple guys and, have a good practice. There's just this moment when you think, okay, now I'm ready. I feel that I'm ready. And I think having a realistic view on that is important. When I know that it took me a while as a player, I'd had nowhere near the skill of a Yaroslav Askarov. I had to work a lot and get my game to a certain point for me to really have that realization. But the American Hockey League, and I think right now him is to go out there, and if he's asked to back up, you go out there and you practice as hard as you can. You do your thing. You want to get noticed that way. You show that you're a good teammate. You're going to stay on the ice after practice for all the guys. You're going to be out early, all those types of things. The off-ice stuff is extremely important because, my advice to him is you're always being watched, whether you're, getting shots on goal during practice or obviously the center of attention in a game, but your workout habits, the way that you treat your teammates, the staff, So just to be cognizant of, it's not just necessarily your playing ability, it's all the other things that are extremely important as a young player to make a good impression on, everybody around the organization.
We'll talk with Chris Mason, one half of the Predators television broadcast. Now, Mace, this time of the year, they're 35 games in, half of this, I think right around half of the season. How do you get a goalie? How does he manage his body throughout a long season? This is what I've always wondered. I know they get rest, but you don't want to rest them too much because obviously you still want to win games. The Preds have the luxury of having Lankinen and now the young kid. But how do these goalies keep themselves, in sort of rest mode when they have to be in for such a long season?
Yeah, that's a good question, D-Mase, because that seems to be the talk every year, right? Is we've got to keep Saros, healthy and fresh for the end of the year and the push and the run. And there's talking a lot about, game management for goaltenders, getting his workload down. But it's really tricky, and it's done by committee because a lot of times the coaches, the strength coach David Good, head coach, goalie coach Ben Vanderklok is leaned on a lot for his guidance as well because of the intimate relationship that a goalie coach has with his players, Lankin and Saros. And sometimes you almost, as the staff, having to protect the goalie from himself because Saros wants to go on. If he plays a game, he wants to go on for the optional skate in the morning. He wants to come in on a day off and he wants to work on his game. He wants to play every game. So if you're leaving it up to Juice and you say, hey, it's back to back, I know you played well last night, do you want to play tomorrow against Washington? Well, he'd say, yes, of course I do. So it's challenging, especially for a guy that really enjoys putting in the work and which Saros does. You really have to sometimes, I believe, step in and just say, hey, you're taking the day off today and, we need you. And obviously I know you want to play against Washington tomorrow, but, we're going to give you the night off and give you some rest. So it's definitely an ongoing thing. And I think it's always at the top of people's mind. And it's hard for the coaches too, because when the Predators are in the situation there, and I expect them to be in this, this pack from now until the end of the season, it's hard not to play your best player, arguably every night. You have to step in and just say, hey, I know, we, like you said, we got Lanks, so we can put Lanks in there and feel good about it. But still, Saros is one of those guys that, they can win games on his own. So it's tough.
Now, you just talked briefly about, staying in the pack as the season goes on. Now, we're close to being halfway, a couple of games more, you'd be halfway in the season. But enable for them to do that, stay within the pack, because we know how, they got the veterans, but they got more young guys than veteran guys. What is one, area of this team that you believe needs to improve the second half of the season?
Well, I would say that they need some more consistency and reliability, I think, from the young players. In particular, and I know it's tough to get back on track, but, a line that was really good for them where if they can get back to the level they were before Tommy Novak got hurt, it was that Evangelista, Novak, and Sherwood. I thought they were really effective, and I felt they took some pressure and a bit of the weight off of, Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist for being, the sole purpose of driving this team forward offensively. I felt that if you have that 1-2 punch, I think to me that's going to be the difference, of this team getting into the playoffs and maybe, on the outside. Colton Sissons has had an unbelievable year. He's done really well on the power play, obviously career high in power play goals, shorthand goals. He's going to break his career high totals. Can he sustain that? Obviously it'd be great if he could. That's not necessarily his role, but those young players, I think the development in them and, it's fine to, you're going to have some inconsistency, but at the same time, you just need some reliable production, I think, from your young group of players as a whole. And it's not all going to happen at the same time, but I think consistently you need that production for this team to successfully get into a playoff spot, in my opinion.
Chris Mason is with us, and then greetings, folks, back home. We're up here in Detroit, Predators and Red Wings tonight. It's a 6 o'clock start. And Mesa, just going back on the goalie thing, we've seen in the back-to-backs this year, UC Saros has gone in the second half of the back-to-backs. But because Kevin Lankinen has been ill and under the weather, he's on the trip. But so is Askarov. So it's an interesting decision, just kind of building on what you just said to D-Mase on UC Saros, I'm sure would be glad to say, yeah, I'll go in both of the games. But they usually don't use him in back-to-back. So they've got a decision to make, I guess, tomorrow on whether Lankinen's good enough to go or we might see Askarov.
Exactly, and that's the thing. I highly doubt, regardless of Lankinen's status, that they would go back-to-back with Saros. I mean, the schedule, it doesn't get any easier. There's games every second night, and more than that if you average it out over weeks, and it's the long-term goal here, as D-Mase mentioned about keeping Saros fresh and healthy going down the season. And if Lankinen is able to go, I'm assuming he will start. But if he's not, I don't think they have any problem at all, giving Askarov a game. He's at that point now, and he's had the success in the minors. He's come up here. He looks comfortable. He's got the confidence. I don't think there's any, worry in the staff if they had to go in that direction to start Askarov. So we'll have to. I guess that's a kind of wait and see kind of thing to see how that plays out. But it would be exciting, I guess, either way. Hopefully Lankinen's back and he's healthy and he's ready to go. But if not, it'd be exciting to see the young kid get a start.
Yeah, definitely something to keep your eye on tomorrow. And Saros coming right back in after really the team didn't have a great game. There were some odd bounces, Mason. That was one where you and I have talked about games like this. There seemed to have been several of these, especially when the team was 5-10. Where you're looking back at the individual goals that Saros gives up on a night where he doesn't finish the game, and you're saying, is that on Saros, or is that some bad luck, or is it a combination of both? And it was kind of a painful reminder in that game against Carolina because they ended up with way more expected goals than Carolina. A lot of Carolina's goals that went in were not really what would be high-grade scoring chances, but it was a bounce off of a player here and there, a seeing eye puck, and the next thing you know, you've given up 5 and you're done.
Yeah, it's tough, right? It's one of those nights where those things happen, and maybe you let in a goal. I think it was Drury's goal. I can't remember. It was maybe one that he would want back, but then it just it shows you that if one of those types of goals where you feel that you should have, accentuates the other unlucky bounces, if you will. But I think the team they did a pretty good job 5-on-5 with the Hurricanes. But I just think, you open yourself up to more of those kinds of unfortunate bounces when you spend a lot of time in the penalty box. And to me, that's kind of one thing I feel this team did a really good job of, with the first half of the year, giving themselves a better chance to win when you stay out of the box. And then you kind of open yourself up to, those kind of crazy situations. The more time you spend in the defensive zone, I mean, you put a bunch of pucks to the net, you're bound to get a lucky bounce here and there. But it has seemed to happen a little more frequently with the Predators. But I say you don't take as many penalties, you're not getting as many of those bad bounces.
Another guy that you mentioned, the Novak line, and that's a big one for sure. And you could tell today as we were talking to Andrew Burnett, he knows that for this team long term to reach its potential, there's got to be some guys that continue to pick up the slack behind Philip Forsberg and some of the veterans that have been guys you can count on night in and night out. So in that class, obviously, is Cody Glass, who had another rough game the other night. Some good things, but also some big mistakes, and you can just see it in his face as he's reacting. He wants to do well so bad, but his confidence is a little bit low right now. He gets another shot tonight, and he's a guy that I think we're just looking for that game where he finds a little bit of traction.
Yeah, and I think that's just part of the psychology of an athlete, and I think it's such an interesting dynamic and process. You come in and you had a great second half last year, and once you set the bar and a standard of play, well, that's the bar now. You're expected to play, expected to be a good shutdown forward. You're expected to contribute offensively. You're supposed to go against the top lines and just do all the things well that Cody Glass had done last year. And this year's been tough because when you get injured, you're not quite as strong. You're coming back. You're never really comfortable. And then your head starts playing tricks on you. Am I good enough? Was it a fluke? How do I get back? You have a good shift and you're feeling pretty good, but your confidence is fragile. Then you go, something bad happens, and all of a sudden you're right back down to the square zero or whatever you want to call it, just where you have to go and try to fight to get that confidence back. They really need him to play. They need him to be a big contributor. I know he can, and right now it's not a matter of the skill part of it. It's a matter of kind of fighting through this adversity and just finding that self-belief, because it doesn't matter how many people tell you that they believe in you. That probably helps, but the one that matters the most is you. And I think right now he's just a little maybe fragile with all the injuries and maybe the inconsistency. And I think it was a good sign last game, because you can kind of see players sometimes have to play themselves out of that or back up to their level. And then all of a sudden, then it clicks. You're like, okay, yeah, this is how I do it. I don't think. I just go out and play. So I'm hoping that that's where, Cody Glass can get himself to, because he's a heck of a player when he's on.
Last one from me, D-Mase. Just kind of at this point, a little over halfway through the season, Predators are sitting around a 25% chance of making the playoffs. There's a lot of hockey that's left to be played. And I do think that a majority, if not the entirety, of the Preds fan base understands that not making the playoffs this year is okay. That's what Barry Trotz said. That's what Andrew Brunette said. That was the expectation that was set going into this season is, look, we might get into the playoffs. We might not, but that's, we got bigger fish to fry. And I think the fan base understands that. I understand that. I think we all understand that. If the Predators don't make the playoffs, just here we are a little over halfway point through this point of the season, what would be considered a win for this Predators team in April or May?
Yeah, that's a very interesting. I feel the same way. I think if you ask the guys in the locker room, I think they'll have a different answer. But I think being realistic outside of it is a great thing. And but I think if we're sitting here and I'm talking to you guys and they're out of the playoffs, and I look at a player like Tommy Novak, who finished off the year strong, they are able to, come to an agreement for, a long-term deal with him. Luke Evangelista, you look at him and he's a better player, by far than he was at the beginning of the year. Phil Tomasino, all these pieces, the defense gets sorted out. Obviously, trade deadline will have a lot to do with where the team is, and just having a clear, I think, kind of vision of the future after this year, instead of, you're at the end of the year, you're like, hey, we went with the young guys. We still don't know what we have. There's a lot of inconsistency. We don't know if this guy's going to be this or this. Hopefully, if they're in that situation, you might get a look at a couple, other players from Milwaukee. I think Spencer Stastny came up, and to me, he looks like a piece that's could be a big piece of the future of this organization. So I think if you get an opportunity to maybe see a couple more of those pieces. Kemel's a guy, he's young. I don't know what the plan is there, but depending on, again, where they are in the standings, you might get a look at this kid who is having a great year in the American Hockey League. And so I think if we are at the end of the season, they don't make the playoffs, but you can say, hey, this is didn't make it this year, but a lot of good things happen. And I can see that these kids are going to be all right. I think that's success in my books.
Clarity for what this team is moving forward. I'm with you. D-Mase, you are the absolute best. Appreciate you for joining us, even with kind of a funky travel day. We'll chat with you next week and enjoy the game tonight.
All right. Thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Appreciate it, D-Mase. So let's discuss that coming up next. Predators have dropped their last two, but have an opportunity to come back tonight in Detroit, taking on the Red Wings. We'll preview that game coming up next. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vanderbilt women's basketball. The Commodores will be at Memorial Gym taking on Fair Dickinson. Tip-off is at 6:30 p.m. and pregame begins at 6:15 p.m. Coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Plus, you can also join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and D-Mase at Twin Peaks and Cool Springs this Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. for our NFL pregame show. He'll break down the Titans' Week 17 matchup against the Texans and give you the latest updates before the game. Our NFL pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment and Beast Unleashed. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet. Plus, bowl season is back. I've been seeing all of the Pop-Tart mascot content on my Twitter feed. That was working last night. They did a great job.
Pop-Tart Bowl.
Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yeah.
Bowl season is back at 102.5 and 106.3, 94.9. The Fan is your home for college football bowl games and the college football playoffs, presented by Twin Peaks and Parman Tractor and Equipment. Today, 94.9 The Fan will have coverage of the Liberty Bowl at 2 p.m. as Memphis takes on Iowa State. And then later tonight at 8:30 p.m., Missouri faces Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. For a list of games carried on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and 94.9 The Fan, hit up our website at thegamenashville.com/bowl games. Couple updates on the bowl games. Kentucky leads Clemson 21-10 at the end of the third quarter. Oregon State, Notre Dame just kicked off. Notre Dame leads Oregon State 7-0. But the Predators are in action tonight as well. We're drinking sports from a fire hose today. Preds in Detroit, puck drop at 6 o'clock. We'll have your pregame coverage starting here at 5 p.m. Preds in a little bit of a skid, dropped the last two, a heartbreaker against Dallas with 2 late goals, and then, of course, falling to the Carolina Hurricanes earlier this week. Willie, what do we need to know about Detroit? How did the Preds get back on track here tonight against the Red Wings?
Well, Detroit is a team that's got high expectations for themselves. It's been a long time since they made the playoffs, and they got off to a very good start on the season, but they have slumped of late. They've lost 8 of 10, and they have been giving up a lot of goals. That's been a big issue for them. They can score. They've added Patrick Kane. He has really helped them offensively. They added, in the offseason, Alex DeBrincat, who has great chemistry with Patrick Kane going back to the days in the Blackhawks jerseys for both of them. So they can put the puck in the net, but they're having trouble playing defense, and they've had some injury issues at goalie, but that's a big thing. Is one of their guys, Alex Lyon, is coming back tonight, and he's been the best of the 3. They've been carrying 3 goalies for the whole year. They've got 3 veterans, and they needed somebody to step up. Lyon has been the best of the 3, but he'd been injured the last few weeks, but he has got the nod tonight. And so I think that's where you start, is to see the goalies for both teams. Can UC Saros bounce back from a rough game where he got pulled in the second period? And what does Alex Lyon have in his first start in the last couple of weeks?
Willie, when was the last time the Red Wings, has it been a decade since they've been to the playoffs?
I'm going to look it up now because I think that's a good question. It's been close. If it hasn't been a decade, it's 8 or 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit sports fans going through it. I mean,
yeah,
the Pistons
oh my
are
goodness,
like
Willie.
Well,
let's not get into that. Willie,
I had so much fun last night.
They have not made the playoffs since 2016, guys.
Oh, so it's been what, 7 years? Going on 7 years? Man.
Been a minute.
So, Willie, let me ask you this too. Is that rivalry, or that, is it still there? Is that thing still there between these two teams?
It's not the same as it was.
Okay.
And yes, they've missed it for 7 straight years, making the postseason. So this has been a long rebuild, and you can tell the fans are getting antsy here because they've been patient. And one of their all-time legends, who was a big part of the rivalry originally between the Predators and the Red Wings, Steve Yzerman, is now the guy that is running the team. He's the GM. He's gotten there a couple years ago. He brought up from Tampa, where Yzerman was a big part of Tampa's building of their dynasty as the assistant GM, and then the GM. He came to Detroit, and he brought Derek Lalonde with him, and I felt like everybody here felt like it was time to win. And they're still in it. They're 16, 15, and 4. They had a great start. So they're in a slump right now. And it just goes to show you that over 82 games, a lot of teams, unless you're a juggernaut, you're going to have some good stretches, and then you're going to have some stretches where you struggle. And you got to get through those tough stretches. And I think Nashville's trying to avoid one of those now. They're coming off riding a great wave where they won 13 out of 16, and they've leveled off a little bit. And so they're trying to get back on it. And the Red Wings have hit a big dip after a good start. They're trying to get back on it. But D-Mase, it's a great question because I think in the early chapters of the franchise history, I think you can't say enough about what the Red Wings did to sort of set the standard for the Predators. They were the team everybody in the league was chasing, but especially as kind of like the little kid brother just entering into the league. They took their lumps from the Red Wings for a long time, but it made them better. It made them tougher. It helped them kind of form the identity of how they won as an organization. So it'll never be the same because the Red Wings are now in the Eastern Conference and they're only going to play twice a year. But I don't think anybody will ever forget what they meant in those early years.
And I think that Detroit always pops up in the conversation, at least the conversations that we were having, February, March, early springtime last year as the Predators were approaching the trade deadline was, rebuild or not rebuild. And one of the cautionary tales of rebuilding kind of has been the Red Wings, that they haven't been able to get back to that point, that there's no guaranteed timeline of, okay, tear it down, and then in 3 years, you're going to be good. No. Detroit's been going through it since it was 2016. Have been pretty bad since then. But, as far as the Predators are concerned about getting back on track, I view this Predators team and where they stand in the Western Conference, there's not a huge margin for error. That you're going to lose games to the Carolina Hurricanes. You're going to lose games to the Toronto Maple Leafs. That those teams are just juggernauts. Those teams, they just got a lot more talent than, frankly, you do. But the margin for error is so thin against teams that you should beat.
And there's not a lot of teams that I would say fall into the category of should beat because there's so many teams in that middle group, right? Let's take the Red Wings and even the Capitals, right? The Capitals tomorrow, that's a team that is kind of overachieved. The Flyers would fit in that category. Teams that weren't supposed to be that good, and you might even throw the Predators in that category, but they're playing well. The Red Wings, high expectations. Ottawa, Buffalo, those three teams, supposed to be a lot better. They're not there, but they're not bad, right? They are below expectation, but still on their best night, very capable of beating just about anybody. So that's what's tough about the league is trying to consistently put your best out there so that by the end of the year, through the ups and downs, you end up with that, close to 100 points. That's what it takes to get into the dance, and then you see what happens from there. But I do think the Predators have played a pretty tough stretch of teams here of late. And the Red Wings are maybe a notch down from what they saw last week with Dallas, with Carolina, Philadelphia, Vancouver. Those are the last four teams. Those are four very good teams right there. I would say Detroit's not quite at that level, but we'll see. Of course, tonight, watching them come out and light them up for 6 or 7 goals. They'll look like, the Yzerman Red Wings. That's what you just don't know in this league. But part of too what I think about when you ask that, Caroline, is look at now how well Minnesota is playing. Look at Edmonton won again last night. So there's no cushion now. The Predators are still in the playoff position, but you can tell it's going to be a dogfight for teams trying to get into the wild card. So the pack is right there. So you just can't afford one of those dips. You've got to find a way to keep getting points.
The John Hines effect in Minnesota.
They're playing really well. They absolutely lit up the Red Wings the other night, 6-3. It was no contest. They're playing very well under John Hines.
And that's kind of why I view it as the lack of wiggle room, so to speak, is if you go on a losing streak, that makes your job that much more difficult. And it's a really, really competitive conference. That if you drop a few games, well, that just opens up the door for that team that's maybe a couple points behind you.
Right. And, for a team like Edmonton, who was supposed to be a Stanley Cup contender, they're not supposed to even be fighting for a playoff spot. They're supposed to be one of the teams that
terrible at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, they're coming out of a deep, deep hole, but they're back towards the pack now. And getting back to something, D-Mase, you asked Mace about what needs to improve. I think the general statement now going forward is, look, for this team to be there and be in the mix by April, somewhere in here and fairly soon, they've got to get another level from Parsonen, Glass, Novak, Evangelista, Tomasino. Now, Tomasino's had a nice run here, with the exception maybe the last two games. He had the big game in Philadelphia, and he's leveled off a little bit. But the young guys have to do it, and that is really how the team is designed. I think you know what you're getting from Forsberg and O'Reilly and Nyquist. Those guys are going to be steady. There's no question about it. But you have to have a second wave in there, and it can't just be Colton Sissons and Yakov Trenin and some of the guys who have really come up with some big games and some timely goals. The guys who have the skill to score and contribute offensively, Novak, Glass, Parson, and Evangelista, you're not getting a ton from them right now. And remember the second half of last year, how well those guys played? That's what they're going to need. If they get it, I think it's going to be a lot of fun in the last few months, because I do think they'll be right in it. I don't know if they're going to make it, but I think they'll stay in the race. If they don't come around eventually, then that's where you start getting concerned. And remember what C-Mace's answer was, that's what you want to see at the end of the year. You want to see those guys collectively take a step forward and grab those jobs and say, yeah, I belong on this team in the big picture here. So I think it's a critical next few weeks, few months for that group.
Consistent production from the young guys. We've been talking about that all season, and we're getting to the point in the season where it's okay. You've had about a half of a season under your belt. Now it's time for you to start taking the opportunities that are afforded to you. And that's not just this season. I think that's confidence in next season and beyond. It's how some of these young guys can step up and play large roles. Again, Predators in action tonight in Detroit. Puck drop at 6 o'clock. Pregame coverage starting right here on 102.5 The Game at 5 p.m. We will take it to the bank coming up next. Rough week for me yet again. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tomorrow for Vanderbilt men's basketball. The Commodores take on Dartmouth at home. Tip off at 4 p.m. with pregame beginning at 3:30 p.m. Coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app.
All right. Well, you heard Caroline. We are about to do our Take It to the Bank segment, which is always so much fun to end the week on Fridays. And it's brought to you by F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. It is something that they really stand by through thick and thin. We talked about a few weeks ago when the tornadoes hit, and I know those communities are still being affected by that. The aftermath, the process has begun for recovery in areas like Clarksville and Hendersonville. F&M Bank has branches there. I know how hard they're working for their clients to come out of it as well as possible, because they make it about the community. They have a personal relationship. It's a local bank. That's why F&M Bank stresses to find the nearest location to you, because they want the decisions to be made locally from a bank where your business means more to them. 20 convenient locations. One of them's going to be in your area. So just go to myfmbank.com. That's the website, myfmbank.com, and find the nearest location to you. We're going to have some fun in a moment. We'll take it to the bank. It's F&M Bank, banking made easy on purpose, equal housing lender, member FDIC.
It is now time to take it to the bank with F&M Bank. F&M Bank, banking made easy on purpose. Business is complicated, but banking does not have to be. F&M Bank. Visit one of their 20 locations throughout Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky or online at myfmbank.com. All right, let's recap last week. Not a great week from me. Our commissioner, Nick Frazier, sent over the results from last week. I said Patrick Mahomes, 2 touchdowns, which I genuinely thought would be a pretty easy one to get. But then the Chiefs forgot to play how to play football. Apparently, so did Patrick Mahomes against the Raiders on Christmas Day. My goodness, so no good for me. Willie, it is not the December of Donick, I fear. Cowboys win. That did not happen. Burks over 4.5 targets. He only had 3.
Wow.
So none for
What's
Willie.
going on? I need to talk to somebody over there. Come on. Get the ball to Burks.
I've been
And
screaming
4.5 is not a ridiculous ask.
Exactly.
I know. I was ready for the next step forward. I was ready for the next progression, and we had a setback.
Everybody's ready for the next progression, but I don't think the team is.
We're all ready to move forward. D-Mase
And the question is, do I go back to this well? Do I go back to this well again? We will see.
And that is what we call a tease. Good week for D-Mase. He said Lamar to have a rushing touchdown. That did not happen. But you also said a passing touchdown for Lamar. That did happen. You said Christian McCaffrey touchdown and 100+ all-purpose yards. That did not look like it was going to happen through the first half. I think he had like 30-something yards. Did end up scoring a touchdown, had over 100 all-purpose yards. So cha-ching for D-Mase.
Bam. Cha-ching.
No good for Nick. Preds did not win. Preds did not win. He also had 1,000 yards for both D-Hop and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, 972. D-Hop, 939. So just short of that 1,000-yard mark. But D-Mase, you are our leader. You go ahead. What's your take to the bank this week?
Man. My take it to the bank is that UC's in net, right? Willie, or we don't know yet.
He's in tonight. Yes.
Okay.
He will start tonight. Tomorrow, we don't know what's going to happen.
Okay. We will have a bounce-back performance from UC. He will not allow over 1 goal.
Ooh.
Take that to the bank.
I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that, D-Mase. That would mean good things, I think. I like their chances if that happens.
Mm-hmm. So that's my
All
take
right.
it to the bank.
That is your take it to the bank. I will go on with mine. Mine this week, I'm going to go a little college football playoff since we won't be back until Tuesday. I'm going to say Jalen Milroe has at least 2 touchdowns, whether it's passing or rushing. And I'm going to say that Texas sacks Michael Penix Jr. at least twice. So 2 touchdowns, Jalen Milroe, 2 sacks from Texas's defense.
Now, they can be run touchdowns or they have to be
run or pass.
Run or
just
pass.
2
Okay.
touchdowns whole.
All right. What you got, Willie?
Okay. I've got this for the Titans-Texans. It looks like Stroud and Levis. It looks like it for the first time of many, right? We're thinking this could be a thing for the next several years.
Peak of what is to come.
I'm going to say the 2 rookie quarterbacks will combine for 4 touchdown passes between them. 4 or more.
Oh.
Combined?
I like that.
I want to see some action. I feel like they're going to put it up a lot, and they'll get at least 4. It could be 4 for one, 0 for the other. Who knows? But I think I'm looking for 4. And then
like
on the Predators front, I'm going to say that I'm going to say Novak and Glass for the next 2 days, 2 games, will get at least 2 points. 2 points combined. So they've got to get a point each, at least in the next 2 games. They need to step forward. Those are 2 key guys. I'm going to set the expectations low. This is not a high degree of difficulty, but remember, Cody Glass has 1 goal and 1 assist on the season so far. Tommy Novak has not scored and has only 3 assists since he's come back from the injured list. So I'm looking for baby steps here, progression, just like for Traylon, which didn't come through last week. but
Took
I
two
need
biggest
them
steps
to
there.
combine for 2 points in the next 2 games. Make a contribution.
I like it. All right, but quickly before we go, predictions: Titans Texans on Sunday.
Titans Texans. Boy, oh boy. I'm picking the Texans. I think the Titans will give the Texans all that they have, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think defensively they're missing too many people on the defensive side of the ball. Houston Texans 24, Titans 17.
Willie?
Okay, I say Texans to cover. I need some points. I'm going to say Texans. I'm going to go 27-17 Texans.
I'm going to go Texans 28-24. Another close loss for the Tennessee Titans. That is going to do it for us today. Have a very happy and safe and healthy new year. We'll be back on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Jared Stillman's up next, and he's got a New Year's resolution that he's going to share. Stillman & Company's up next.
Be love and love on your people. Peace.